The story of America. A journey through time. Long before the flags, cities, and skyscrapers, before presidents and constitutions, the land that would become the United States was a vast wilderness filled with mountains, rivers, forests, and plains. For thousands of years, this land was home to countless indigenous nations. They hunted, farmed, built communities, traded with one another, and passed their traditions from generation to generation. Among the forests of the Northeast lived the Haudenosaunee Iroquois people, who created a powerful alliance of nations. In the Southwest, Pueblo communities built impressive villages from stone and adobe. Along the Mississippi River, ancient cultures constructed enormous earthworks and cities. These societies had their own governments, languages, beliefs, and ways of life long before Europeans arrived. The story of the United States begins not with a single moment, but with many peoples whose histories were already thousands of years old. The arrival of Europeans. In the late 15th century, European sailors began crossing the Atlantic Ocean in search of new lands and trade routes. In 1492, Christopher Columbus reached islands in the Caribbean, opening the way for more European exploration of the Americas. Over the next century, Spanish, French, Dutch, and English explorers arrived in North America. They brought new technologies, animals, and ideas, but they also brought diseases that devastated many indigenous communities. Competition for land and resources grew between European powers and native nations. The English eventually became the strongest European influence on the eastern coast of North America. In 1607, English settlers founded Jamestown in Virginia, the first permanent English colony. Life was extremely difficult. Many settlers died from hunger, disease, and conflict. However, the colony survived and began producing tobacco, which became a profitable crop. More English colonies followed along the Atlantic coast. By the 1700s, 13 colonies had developed. They had different economies and cultures. Some depended on farming, some on trade, and some on industries such as shipbuilding. Although the colonies were controlled by Britain, many colonists began developing their own identity. The road to revolution. For many years, Britain and its American colonies had a close relationship. The colonies provided resources and trade, while Britain protected them militarily. But after expensive wars, Britain began placing new taxes on the colonies. Many colonists believed these taxes were unfair because they had no representatives in the British Parliament. Their anger grew with slogans like, "No taxation without representation." Tensions increased. In 1770, British soldiers killed several colonists during the Boston Massacre. In 1773, protesters threw British tea into Boston Harbor during the Boston Tea Party. Eventually, conflict became unavoidable. In 1775, fighting began between colonial forces and the British Army. The American Revolution had started. On July 4th, 1776, representatives from the 13 colonies approved the Declaration of Independence, written largely by Thomas Jefferson. It announced that the colonies were separating from Britain and creating a new nation. The war lasted several years. The American Army, led by General George Washington, faced a powerful British military. The Americans struggled with limited supplies and inexperienced soldiers, but they received help from France. In 1783, Britain officially recognized American independence. A new country had been born. Building a new nation. Winning independence was only the beginning. The leaders of the new United States faced a difficult question. How should the country be governed? The first government was weak. So leaders gathered in 1787 to create a new system. They wrote the United States Constitution, a document that established the structure of the government. The Constitution created three branches: the President to lead the executive branch, Congress to make laws, the Supreme Court to interpret laws. It also created a system of checks and balances to prevent any one person or group from becoming too powerful. In 1789, George Washington became the first president of the United States. He helped establish traditions that shaped the young nation. The country continued to grow. New states joined the Union, and settlers moved westward. But expansion created conflicts, especially with Native American nations who were losing their ancestral lands. Expansion and change. During the 1800s, the United States expanded rapidly. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson purchased a huge territory from France known as the Louisiana Purchase. This nearly doubled the size of the country. Explorers such as Lewis and Clark traveled west to study the new lands. Soon, settlers followed, searching for farmland and opportunities. The idea of manifest destiny became popular, the belief among many Americans that the nation was meant to expand across the continent. However, this expansion came at a terrible cost for many native peoples, who were forced from their homes through treaties, wars, and government policies.